abstract, things that can seem abstract, theories or approaches, be it through peace building or nonviolent action, it's a little bit harder for people to get on that train and continue it to its end. Some people totally into that. Others not so much. So I feel like a great avenue to get people to get on that train and understand those perspectives is through storytelling. I mean, the whole example I gave around A Force More Powerful in the documentary series, I got into it because it wasn't a theoretical exploration of civil resistance. It was the story of an actual movement and the individuals within that movement. And that's what hooked me. And I can watch and read those stories over and over again. I think that's another thing too, where we can learn so much from like movies, and I think now this like burgeoning field of podcasting where people will take time out of their day, carve time out of their busy day and their busy schedule to watch something on television, a documentary series or a sitcom or what have you, Game of Thrones, all that kind of stuff. They'll take time out of their day to like, I'm gonna listen to this hour-long podcast. And they're gonna learn a lot from it, depending on what they're watching. But I see that, I'm always like, a lot of people talk about just being busy, not having enough time in their day to explore something that they're interested in. But we do find time to read a good book. We'll take an hour before we go to bed or watch something on television or listen to a podcast. So how do we take that same skill set of writing a story, telling a story, documenting a story to teach about something that can initially seem like it's abstract? So a lived experience with that has been when I worked at the U.S. Institute of Peace. We were designing courses, teaching courses on peace building and negotiation and conflict transformation and nonviolent action. And we would provide a lot of the theoretical concepts that are important for this work. But we also have these connections to a lot of individuals who have lived experience practicing or seeing these concepts in real life. And so we, instead of doing webinars, which can tend to be just PowerPoint presentation and people just kind of getting sharing these like theories, it quickly transformed into, let me help someone tell their story and unpack parts of it that is relevant to the learning, but also maybe unpack parts of their story that they hadn't even unpacked yet. And that was some of the most like fascinating work, at least for me, and I hope for the learners, to again explore these skill sets and explore these concepts through someone's story. So I always, one of my goals when I would sit down and like host and interview people for this podcast was to start the podcast just by building a rapport with the individual. And I'd always try and ask a question or prompt them with something that was going to reveal something about themselves that you couldn't find searching about them online. I didn't want to just have them repeat things that you could get again in the jacket of the book that they wrote or the CV that's on LinkedIn or something like that. It was, what's an angle that's going to get people to be like, oh wow, there's this interesting connection that I have with you on a human level, not so much like what your professional identity is, your accolades and things like that. So that was, I think, a really good experience. And I think a lot of people walked away from those interviews saying like, that was a really good experience for me too. It's like we had this hour-long conversation, an hour-and-a-half-long conversation, and I'm thinking about myself and my work and my history in a way that I wasn't before. So I think it has a benefit not just those who are hearing the story or reading the story, but also those who are unpacking their own story or writing it themselves. So that's always been a good experience.